Welcome back from the commercial break. I'm Dr. Joseph Tindebwa, still with our dear guest, Prof. Augustine Iferibugu, and he is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Victoria University, and is an expert and a specialist in energy development and also environmental, conservation practices. We are going on with our discussion with our discussion relating to the natural resources in Uganda and East Africa, especially looking at the minerals for economic development. The concept of economic development, Prof, seems to be a wider concept, but yet specific to what is needed of. To me, I just simply say the well-being of society, economically, and they are able to meet their basic needs. Absolutely. And besides that, there is existence of progress, the progress of humanity. Absolutely. It goes to the evolutions, which we will not go into as per the theories. Since our topic is not too academic, we're not going into those conceptualization. And we are blessed to be with you, dear guests, once again, and to let you know that we have a passion in our informative, analytical topic, which looks at how best can natural resources boost job creation and economic growth of Uganda and East Africa. We continue to aspire not to expire. And in our aspiration as Smart 24 TV is that Uganda and East Africa and African continent generally, because our vision is wide at that perspective, is that we can have a well-economic progressive continent and country. And we'll be looking at a later stage, why is it that the countries which have had the opportunity for the mineral resources, especially gold, diamond, and maybe iron ore, and we're talking about petroleum, they have had challenges. We go to the northwest, part of the challenge of Libya, if you go into the analysis, the governance of natural resources, much as they talk about good governance issues, but also the governance of natural resources is attached to it. Yeah. And in your first submission, no wonder, maybe, somehow, but still you had also had the challenges much as you had given them all this. Because the challenge we have with the Western world, they are normally the ones who sponsor wars. Because they manufacture these tools and they come and say, let's give you the military hardware, you will give us oil. Some deal is signed somewhere. Yeah. And even where some governments, including our own, has tried to compromise with us benefiting for the sake of maybe having peace. You see, it is a pity for us, but we shall overcome. 80% which I've talked about here by Bong oil field in Nigeria, 20% is only what the government will get as a revenue. For us, you've said that our deal may be better. We are still going on with our comparative advantage and disadvantage, especially Uganda. And we'll be looking at not only petroleum, but you are talked about also gold. We also have, I also reflected on iron ore. And by the time 1960s, 70s, we had a pride of utilizing copper. Copper mining, for us when we were studying geography, and say, copper mining at where? At Chilembe. Everyone could know. Because that is where our resource base was. Yeah. And by that time when we were very rich in those areas, copper was doing a great work here. We were really, our debt burden was low. To your information, our dear guest, during 1970, much as we needed a lot to do, because at times we go for debt when we have a lot to do, but we didn't have a higher debt burden, a huge one, of which now is over some limited threshold. So we continue to look at what remains our advantage and our disadvantage as Uganda and as East Africa. Kenya is there. We will remember in our natural resources, you are an expert, we have water. This water and the tourism, which is also linked up to natural resources again, we seem not to have yet exploited it to a better level that will cause our country to be economically stable. You are giving me a good projection, and these days my discussion is saying I'm focusing on not only aspiring for middle income economy, but first world. Yeah. And I found someone whom I do join my kind of ambition together, the target. We could be like Dubai, we could be like New York. It is possible. What these guys have done that we cannot do. Kindly, you're welcome to continue with our analytical discussion, looking at the economic policies in this area relating with this sector of the natural resources that could help us create jobs and improve our economy.
Okay, thank you so much. So again, looking at the Ugandan economy and economy of East African countries in general, like we said at the beginning, they are not performing very well, and there is a need for growth. Now, the natural resources are there to enable this growth, but then we have to properly utilize these natural resources. If we have the right governance mechanisms in place and put that in place, and then take the revenue that we generate from our natural resources to develop other sectors of the economy, then we can do better. A lot of Ugandans today want to travel to United Arab Emirates. They want to go to Dubai, they want to go to Abu Dhabi.
For jobs.
Yeah, in the 70s, it was just a desert. In fact, if you go to Dubai in 1990, 1992, you could count few 6 skyscrapers, tall buildings.
1970s.
1990, 92. That was how bad.
Dubai.
That's how quick they've grown, yeah.
Oh.
In the last 20, 25 years,
story.
Dubai has grown. And what do? They had oil. So Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and they've utilized the oil resources to develop the tourism sector of the economy, develop all the other sectors of the economy. They've developed technological sector, IT sector, tourism sector. So right now, even if United Arab Emirates does not earn money from oil, they are almost sustainable going forward because they have created a tourism industry that is now self-sustaining. The tourism in Dubai alone is enough to sustain that economy. So African economies need to utilize revenues from their resources, from oil, from gold, from diamond, from whatever natural resources they are endowed with, and use it to develop the other sectors of the economy. And linking that, that's how you create jobs. For example, we're talking about Uganda oil industry employing 52,000 people. Now that is in this construction phase. When the construction phase is all over, a lot of these people who will be in the construction will have no jobs. Only a few will remain. So UNOC, Total, CNOC, maybe they will employ 2,000 people. That's all. At the end of the day, when all the construction is over and now it's just production that is going on, except more oil fields are found and more developments are going to take place. But the money you generate can be used to develop other sectors where you can create more thousands of other jobs, if not millions of other jobs. Uganda is a beautiful country, blessed with so many physical features. The tourism industry can be developed. There's a lot of the other minerals that can also be developed. You talked about iron ore. That's another capital-intensive development. Extractive industry is capital-intensive, so it needs a lot of money. So government have to be purposeful and be very clear with a very clear picture, a very clear goal as to where they want to go and what they want to do, which areas they want to develop. Now, the challenge why some African countries have remained poor despite the natural resources is that they earn money from all of these natural resources and they spend that money for consumption and recurrent expenditure. They are not spending that money for infrastructural development. Uganda needs to develop its roads. Kampala needs flyovers. Those goods and agricultural products that are rotting away far in the north, in the east, in the west, they can't get to Kampala because the transport infrastructure is not there. Look at traffic in Uganda. Sometimes people spend 1 hour, 2 hours in traffic.
3 hours.
Productive time wasted. If you were paying people per hour, you understand how much that costs when people are in traffic. If you build infrastructures, those will create jobs and it will have a spiral effect. Jobs for people, more money for the economy will grow. So talking about the economy and natural resources, if you don't properly utilize the revenue from those natural resources, at the end of the day, it's not going to have more effect. In fact, you might become poorer because there'll be more problems. With oil and gas investment coming in, dollar investments coming in, the demand for dollars will increase, so your exchange rate will likely increase. And that will have effect on every other sector of the economy. Transport will increase, food will increase, everything will have effect. And people's salary is not increasing. They will remain poorer because the money is only in one sector, maybe the oil and gas sector. I think that's a mistake that a lot of African countries have made, that Uganda as a country, starting with the oil development, need to try and avoid that error.
You don't put resources in one sector.
Yeah. Take the revenue and develop other sectors.
You're talking about tourism?
Tourism, agriculture. Uganda does a lot. I think one of the biggest problems we have, you talk about Uganda making money from copper and other things. Over the years, we sell crude, raw products to the international market. We don't add value at source. And when you don't add value at source, you don't make much money. Like President Museveni will always say that even though Africans or the coffee-producing nations don't get up to 10% of the amount of money that is in the coffee business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. But how much money does Ugandans make, the coffee farmers? How much do they make? How much does Uganda as a government make from coffee? It's far less than it should be. Why? Because we are not adding value at source. Switzerland does not produce cocoa, but they make so much money from chocolate. Why the guys who produce the cocoa? Because we don't add value at source. What happens? We don't make a lot of money. So we need to start thinking about value addition, adding value at source before exporting our products. So rather than exporting raw materials, why not export finished products? That way you would triple or even multiply the revenue that you generate from the natural resource exploitation. You're going to create more jobs. Our natural resources in Africa, in Uganda, is creating jobs for people abroad. But we don't have those jobs. Why not add value at source in the agricultural products? And then you can export them and you can maximize your economic rent at the end of the day and make more money. And have a bigger economy, and people will live a better life because there will be jobs available for people.
Thank you. We are continuing together as we are having a competitive advantage on how we can all benefit. Now that's what we'll be looking at, how the citizen can benefit from their natural resources, their minerals. At a certain point, the president says, my oil.
Absolutely.
And some critical Ugandans remain saying, why should this gentleman say it is his oil? Is he going to create this oil? Some critics, okay? And somehow one or the other, either they are right. Because indeed it should be our oil.
Yeah, absolutely.
It should be our oil. And I'm now looking at the cost-benefit analysis, the advantage, the equitable utilization and the distribution of this resource.
Yeah.
You've referred to Ghana. I will refer to Libya.
Yeah.
Libya is believed during the day that the era,
Of Gaddafi.
of Gaddafi.
Yeah.
El Gaddafi, Colonel El Gaddafi the late, may his soul rest in eternal peace. He is still being appreciated by a number of good observers.
Yeah, absolutely.
That the way how he had the policy that he implemented for oil governance, especially to benefit the citizens and the country, seems to have been far better than any other country in Africa.
Correct.
Because out of the oil resource, it was mandatory. Out of the petroleum resource, it was mandatory that any Libyan citizen, those who are Libyans, right, after completing their studies or being in position of an adult at the stage of adulthood,
Yeah.
ready to work, could package a certain package to enable you as your startup capital.
Yeah.
And they say, please, this is out of your oil resource.
Yeah.
And I believe that seems to have been a very good policy. Number one. Number two, infrastructure development in Libya, much as it was a desert country, seems to have been very good. Yeah. And it looks to have been a faster growing economy. Much as on the issue of human resource, human rights, it is believed that either matters of democracy was not a good advocate of the good governance principles which we normally talk about, elections, human rights, freedom of speech, expression. He said, no, I give you what you need, you also let me do my business.
Yeah.
That is Libya. Then we look at other countries, maybe Tunisia. Tunisia had the challenge of unemployment, the other governance, the natural resource, especially petroleum governance in Libya, seems to have been better. We go back to Nigeria. Yeah. Nigeria, much as you operate, the governance is supported by the federal system of governance. Yeah. There are the federal states. The federal states, you say in this province, there's governor so and so. Yeah. And down, there are also those who are like cultural leaders. Yeah. And the information I have, I'm a very good associate of Nigerians. They are my friends. Okay. And I hear that there are those who are in a certain class, and for them, by the virtue of being the cultural leaders in that area, there is a portion, a percentage, which is guaranteed for them. While we are talking about equitable utilization of this resource, and our petroleum or any other mineral, including gold, including copper, to be our copper, our gold, which, what is the analytical point of view you have to that regard? Because at the end of the day, we talked about how Norway has increased in her economic, growth, and $75 per person. So $75,000. Yeah. So what I'm now $75,000. What we are looking now at Uganda, even when we are having all these riches and the methods which are being put on, I'm interested with the viewers how at the end of the day will benefit, so that we don't hear about gold passes through hands. We hear about petroleum just passes through some pipes. But when you look at the lives of the people, they're saying, where is this gold? Where is this petroleum? Comparing that with the three countries, would you give us your analytical point of view and how best maybe to have a standard that can benefit all?
So normally, I will use examples of countries that have done well and countries that have not done well with their oil resources. Unfortunately, my parent country, Nigeria, is one of those countries that have not done well with its oil resources. Norway, United Arab Emirates are two good examples of countries that have done well with their resources. And of course, Libya that you mentioned have also done well until the war that has destroyed and spoiled quite a lot of things. So the difference is that Nigeria had a very vibrant economy in the 70s. 60s, after
1970s.
The war, in the 70s, entering early 80s. Nigeria had a very vibrant economy, had a very vibrant educational system. People were traveling from all over the world, even from Europe, to come study in Nigerian universities. The Nigerian naira then was stronger than the pound at the time. And then oil exploitation started. And they neglected all the other sectors of the economy. One of the biggest money earner for Nigeria at the time was from agriculture. So there were the granite pyramids in the north, there was cocoa in the west, there was rubber in the south. Nigeria earned a lot of money from those natural resources. And so they did extremely well until oil came. And when oil came, the economy started going down.
Why they began to concentrate on oil?
Yeah, everybody concentrated in oil. And as a result of that, inflation came because oil business will come with demand for dollars and inflation will come with it. And they didn't manage that well. Now, Nigeria has produced, there was a time Nigeria was doing over 2 to 2.6 million barrels of oil a day. And there was a time oil price was over $100, $140 per barrel. Now, do the maths. Nigeria has earned trillions of dollars in oil, but it has not really been able. Nigeria should be a first world country on the basis of the oil that they've exploited. So they've made mistakes. There are things we didn't do rightly. But take Norway, for example. Norway is the reverse. Norway is a model for everyone. Everybody who finds oil, they want to study how Norway did it. Norway utilized their oil resources to develop their economy and create a better life, job, peace, stability for its people. United Arab Emirates has done it in recent years. So if you're saying Norway is in the 70s and 80s, United Arab Emirates have done it in the last 20 years or the last 25 years. They've created Dubai, they've created Abu Dhabi, Sharjah is growing, and all of these they have done using their oil and gas resources. Now, what is important is having the right institutional frameworks.
Right institutional framework.
Yeah, right institutional framework to ensure that whatever natural resource is exploited, the benefit trickles down to everybody.
Which institutional framework are you emphasizing on?
So, in terms of
that
governance
maybe
structures,
our policymakers should do.
Yeah. So when I say institutional framework, in terms of policy mechanisms, the processes within government, the laws, the legislation that govern receiving money, expending money, expenditure, the transparency process, and the governance of the revenue that they generate, all of that, it's in place.
Okay.
And everybody follows that. Everybody obeys that. There's no room for anybody to send resources meant to go to the people, to his private pocket. So there are processes in place. And people who break the rule or who are caught being corrupt, there is a consequence management in place. They pay for their errors. They pay for corruption. In Africa, a lot of the problem we have is that we don't have consequence management.
Consequence management.
Yeah. If I'm in power, I do things wrongly. Because I'm in power, nothing happens to me. So those are part of the institutional framework that needs to be built.
By the way, even the Uganda, our country, it is believed that our law, if you are still in the government, I mean as a head of state, you cannot appear in any court.
Of course, because there's natural immunity most head of state have got immunity. Even in Nigeria, members of parliament have got immunity. You can't.
To which level?
So the president, I think the vice, then the governors as well of each state have immunity. While they are in office, they cannot be arrested or prosecuted. But they can be when they leave office.
When they leave office.
Yeah.
So they can pay for their sins.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in Africa, before they leave office, they make sure they put somebody there who will protect their interest.
Their interest.
That's Africa for you.
Its own government, which South Africa.
Yeah.
The story of South Africa was quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the way how they have managed their multi-party democracy it's such a very good way.
Yeah.
The ANC, where they were not satisfied with the kind of governance of that, I think that's Tambeci, right?
Yeah.
And they had to impeach him in his political party. They had to first deal with him internally.
Okay.
And immediately as he lost the presidency of the party, automatically lost the presidency of the nation, and they put another president.
Yeah.
So I think it teaches us a lot, because the big man syndrome in Africa, and there are other countries, like you talk about impeachment, they impeach you.
Yeah.
Apart from, if you have the immunity, but the power, when you are impeached, they go on and deal with you.
Yeah.
Because after impeaching you, they go on and put on. Yeah. That's also easy with some other countries, especially in the area of impeachment.
Yeah.
But for most of the countries, as you said, it is very difficult to impeach the president.
Yeah.
But again, I think we need to graduate to another level as we are continuing to be referred as a developing economy. There is a way we need to strengthen our laws. You talked about the institutional framework, because some of the mistakes that end up being committed by a whole country is not that all of us have committed a mistake. Yeah. Those who manage our resources, they're the ones who make a mistake. Yeah. You abuse the law, you are corrupt, you are found out to be, you're not transparent, you negotiate that deal, you had, abuse of office, conflict of interest, all kind of corruption, kind of it. but you cannot be impeached. If there is evidence and is compiled, there should be not a difficult, and it's a process.
Yeah.
Which, so long as they justify that it's true you did it.
Yeah.
The only way to remove the immunity from you is by impeaching you. I think that would have been an alternative. Yeah. Because abuse of power, abuse of office also on the other hand, has been a challenge. Yeah. Now you look at, for instance, what happened with the Gaddafi, this president, the late Muammar Gaddafi. Yeah. Suppose he was able to respect on the other side the human rights because of the governance, the legal framework. Yeah. And what we call being a signatory or standard principles. You allow elections to take place. Even if you want to come back, you come back. Yeah. That would have a bit saved the situation. But as we are moving forward, coming back to East Africa and generally in African continent, it seems the influence of foreigners, the external influence of Western powers seem to be a hindrance for us to utilize these resources, much as we have also our challenges. Yeah. What is your take on that?
Yeah, well, there's no gainsaying that every country will work for the interest of their country. So if I'm an American and I come to Uganda, I have to work for the interest of America. So sometimes, we do know that there are some Western influences in some of the problems we have in Africa. Take Democratic Republic of Congo, for example. Mm-hmm. That is a hugely rich country. Mm-hmm. That should be one of, in fact, the richest country in the world. Mm-hmm. But that's not happened because the disorganization, the conflict in that place benefits
the West. Do you have like 5 causes why it has failed to make it?
Again, because we...
And also ask why we have failed to make it.
Yeah, because we
are talking of 25%, 25 billion economic growth. Why are we not making it faster? And why Congo, so for them it's worse? Yeah,
we don't have the right institutional frameworks or governance mechanism for our natural resource exploitation. Mm. The West is making more money. In fact, Samsung, Apple, these guys are making more money than Congo from where the things that they use for mobile phone comes from.
The things for mobile phone, they come from Congo.
Your Apple, your Samsung, all of those materials, all the minerals that makes up your phone component
from Congo
come from Congo.
Oh.
Now, the market capitalization of Apple and some of these companies in trillions, 1-point-something trillion dollars. Hmm. African top 250 companies put together has a market capitalization that is less than $300 billion. Mm. But Apple, one company. And they are able to be in business because they are getting the minerals they need from Congo. Is Congo making money? No. So the natural resource governance mechanism has its issues that needs to be looked at. The conflict will help the West to exploit the natural resources. So they can support the conflict, why not, indirectly? Because it helps their country. But African leaders, this is where African leaders need to take a stand for their country. We used to have, in the 70s and 60s, a group of people we call Pan-Africans, whose interest was the African continent and their countries. We don't have them anymore.
There are some clubs, there was one which they used to invite me, Pan-African whatever club, Pan-African club. Yeah. But as you're saying, is it assertive in achieving what could be the targets?
Yeah.
Yes.
We used to have leaders who had the interest of their country at heart. And some of them left office poor. They were not looking to steal money. But African leaders, the reverse is the case today.
Don't you think?
So they work for their own interest.
Don't you think Magufuli would have been a good one, the late Magufuli, because he looks,
possibly, he was going in that direction.
And also the late Patrick Lumumba.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have a lot of people who should have been in those positions. A few countries are doing well today in Africa, like Botswana.
To safeguard the interests of Africans.
Yes.
To ensure that our African citizens, the youth, the old, they are benefiting from their resources. Anything that should come when even negotiation is on should be African first.
The interest of Africa,
interest
the
of
interest of
Africans.
your country,
because
should be number one.
We've had a challenge where some of these companies we talked about, the for us a fair deal, where even the 52,000 jobs you're talking about, some of them they are only identified for their very owners of the company, where they are coming from, for the very foreigners, which is not fair. How can you be to get a caterer? You want to first bring a caterer from UK, from Germany, to come here, and then you are telling us that we are going to get jobs, yet you are just a caterer, because this one can be trained from here. Just let me call it panobit, or to improve just the human resource skill. If you had a diploma maybe of catering and hospitality from, let's say, MOBS, let's say maybe from Victoria University, and maybe someone comes with a higher standard of saying, yes, you have this diploma, you have this skill, but you are lacking, add this. 2 months, 3 months, someone becomes the best. Maybe in terms of using the modern tools, and maybe also understanding the deity, some styling of it, but shouldn't now be taking us to that. But the negotiation, as you are saying, our Africans negotiating for deals, they'll be not putting our citizen first. You can go on and maybe give us.
So again, like you rightly said, when we negotiate contracts, oftentimes our leaders don't put the country's interest at heart. A lot of the time. And again, sometimes Africans, we tend to be disadvantaged because oftentimes we do not have the technology, we do not have the technical expertise. That is where, again, you can't talk about economic development without talking about education and training. People need to be educated, government needs to fund education, government needs to ensure that you have state-of-the-art facilities for education. Government needs to ensure that they are supporting research. Because we don't have these technologies and we don't have the expertise, it puts us at a disadvantage when we negotiate contracts. Because you need their expertise. Oftentimes you need their money. And so when you're negotiating, they are on the driving seat. But if you have the expertise, you have the facilities, you have your own technology, they won't be on the driving seat. Look at China. China now has reached a stage that if they are negotiating with the Americans, they are almost the boss now. They're on the driving seat.
China.
Because they don't depend on America for anything anymore. But America depends on them now. It wasn't like this 40 years ago. They were almost dependent on America. So we need to educate our population. We need to train our population. We need to fund research and development to put us in a position so that when we have the human capacity and we have the intellectual capacity, when we are negotiating contracts with the West or Asia or anywhere else in the world, we are on the driving seat. We negotiate on our own terms.
So we were still comparing the petroleum governance in Libya and in Nigeria, and then to compare with ourselves. For us, we believe in, of course, it's a centralized system of governance, local government, decentralization, and then partly we also have the centralization. And when resources are generated, then they come into the national coffers. Then they allocate, they appropriate to the sectors. As you've said, not only the sector of petroleum, but other sectors, which is okay. Like I've seen the emphasis of this government putting resources in the energy sector, and also partly in infrastructure. Then in the others, including security, and many more others. But at the end of it all, of recent, there is a new program which has been introduced called the Paris Development Model that is intending to enable citizen access these resources. But back to what we're talking about, the growth of per capita income per person to have not only to get, as we normally calculate the GDP, you're aware, we normally get like maybe 100 rich people who are contributing the tax,
Yeah.
But I don't believe in that economic theory at all.
Yeah.
And then they say that now we have Mukwano, we have Wavamuno, we have maybe Nzei. They earn this amount of money. And what we need to do, what they normally do, they say, okay, let us distribute their billions, 100 billions, into the 45 million. Even those who are in a certain village somewhere there in Karamoja, who don't know even what $1 means, that they end up now calculating and say, okay, you are also earning per person $1.
Yeah.
That is not realistic. I do look at what the president of Libya had done, the proportionate, appropriation and proportionality for the utilization of the oil resource, to have a percentage for citizens directly. May I think it would have been the best. What is your policy guidance on that?
Yeah.
And also compared to Nigeria, where they say that for those who are, they call them Igwe, those who are from the cultures of the kings, that for them they are given a certain advantage over the others.
So again, when it comes to sharing resources, I am a bit indifferent to a sharing economy.
Yeah, I hear you.
What we need is a productive economy.
That's right.
So, yeah, Libya shared money. Yeah, if you're a Libyan, they have a relatively small population and they generate quite a lot of revenue from oil. They were second to Nigeria in terms of oil production. But they are number one in terms of oil reserve that they have. So they have so much resources that it can easily go around. And Gaddafi did a very good job making sure that he provided education for them.
Yeah,
if you're a Libyan and you have a scholarship or you have a university admission to the top 100 university in the world, you're given scholarship to go and study. So he recognized the importance of education. When you have a highly educated economy, your GDP will grow. People will live better lives because they're educated. One of the problems Nigeria have got is that this money they generate at the federal level, at the end of every month, they share the oil money. The state takes their own, and the states are supposed to distribute to the local government. And a lot of the time, this money that has gone to the state doesn't end up among the people in the state. It ends up among the politicians and that. Next month, they come back to share the oil money. Now, I am not an advocate of sharing.
Yes.
I'm an advocate of production. Use that money
for production.
To build infrastructure.
That's right.
To build production infrastructure.
That's right.
So that guy in Karamoja, it's utilizing the money to build infrastructure that is getting people employed, and they make their own money.
They make their own money.
So they are not waiting for government.
It's much more sustainable.
To give them money.
You say me to go to your side. I agree with that. Yeah. Because I believe indeed that is much more, if we talk about sustainable economic development.
Absolutely.
The one which can, is cyclic, it goes on and can be transferred to the fourth, the third generation.
Absolutely.
And supporting production, I think that is important. And what about now the case of your oil governance, especially the policy, petroleum governance in Nigeria, where some people are favored more than others?
Of course, there is the Nigerian oil and gas industry is a very complex industry. Government, like you said, Museveni says, is my oil. Yeah, anything that is under the ground by the law, similar to England, anything under the ground belongs to the Queen. So anything under the ground belongs to government. And who is the head of government? President Museveni. So it's his oil, but it's our oil as well. Yeah. So when it comes to the policies, the governance policies for oil and gas, if you look at the Nigerian situation, yeah, some people over the years have realized that this oil is in my land. And why am I poor? Why am I traveling up north to the central, to Lagos, and I'm seeing 5-6 lane roads, tarred road, beautiful houses, and they have used the money from the oil from my village to develop the city. So what happened was that trouble started rising in the Niger Delta, which is the place where the oil is one of the poorest part of Nigeria, and that's where the oil is produced. But these are the poorest people. So in the late 90s, entering early 2000, youth started rising up and saying, enough is enough. You've been exploiting our oil. Look at us. We don't have jobs. We are poor. And trouble started.
That's in Nigeria.
Yeah. So what has happened is that the chiefs became now very powerful because the oil companies were reaching out to the youth through the chiefs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and then after a while, the youth
could easily listen the chief.
Yeah. At the time, they were listening to the chiefs. But they realized that these chiefs are getting richer.
And for us, we're getting
and we
poorer.
are still poor. So enough is enough. So they started fighting for their right. And that's how trouble started. And the commotion that happened in the Niger Delta with the militancy.
That is which year?
From the early 2000s. Or even before then, I think late 1999. Entering 2000, yeah, just during the late into Abacha's time and then early into Obasanjo's regime, entering into mainly a lot of the trouble got to its peak during the Obasanjo regime. Yeah.
So now moving forward, we look at the potential we have in other areas apart from oil. Yeah. We are looking at copper. Yeah. I talked about copper. Then the gold, which you were talking about. Yeah. Iron ore, diamond, wolfram. Also, we are told many more other minerals, including sand. It is a serious one. But again, what would have also benefited from very much the cement.
Yeah. And
the cement to reach to the product of cement and all that. Then these tiles which we use. Yeah. What should we do best in terms of policy framework, and maybe also the awareness of the citizen that they need to know in order to utilize our natural resources, all these minerals in diversity. Yeah. Because it is very bad to find that you are with wealth, but you are poor.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, coming back to the whole mineral resources that we have seen in Uganda here, like the iron ore and all of that, I think one truth that has to be established is that extractive industry is a capital-intensive industry.
So we encourage industrialization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need money. Okay. And where do you get this money? Right now, the two biggest things for Uganda in terms of the extractive industry, it's oil and gold. Now, it's estimated now that Uganda will make about $2 billion every year from gold. The question is, what are you going to do with that $2 billion? If government have a strategic plan and a very clear goal as to utilizing that money to expand and develop the extractive industry, give yourself 10-year, 20-year plan. You can get to a point where the money, so if you're earning about $2 billion per year from gold, and that's expected to increase with these new findings. So let's assume you reach $4 billion a year. Now, if that money is adequately utilized for building infrastructure, for developing the other sectors, the cement production, for example, the iron ore, you can produce steel. But like I said, these are capital-intensive projects. They are not projects you can just develop. You need huge capital. So but government needs to have very clear, defined goal and purpose. A government that has a very clear picture of where it wants to go, what it wants to develop, assessing. The truth is, nobody on earth, even in the developed world, have all the money and all the resources to develop all that they want to develop. But then, you need to now sit down and look at cost-benefit analysis. What can I develop now that frees me resources to develop the others? What can I develop quicker with the available resources that I have that frees me some capital investment that I can put into other sectors? So government have to have a very clear strategic plan or national development plan for development of its extractive industry. Hopefully, 2025, you start earning oil money. What do you do with the oil money? The gold money that comes now that will help grow the economy, what do you do with it?
The copper.
Yeah, the copper and all of that. And like I always say that don't turn those money for consumption and recurrent expenditure. spend a significant amount of, if government spend a significant amount of aid for capital development, for infrastructural development, for expanding the extractive industry, then you're going to get to a point where you're even earning more money from all of these other sectors you're developing than from the mineral sector. And that's how the economy compounds, and that's how things grow, and that's how people are in jobs. And I think that is the key if we're going to grow the economy and take advantage of this huge natural resource that we have. Because unfortunately, African countries are resource rich, but unfortunately the richest countries in the world are countries with no resources.
With no resources?
Yeah.
What's the secret of these countries?
Because if you have nothing, you work hard to make something.
Oh.
But if you have everything, you relax thinking, in Uganda,
but at times it is just the complacency is based on the ignorance, not because even there is kind of satisfaction.
No, I think sometimes
there are two kind of complacent. There's only a complacent because of ignorance.
Yeah.
You think that everything's well. You just come like as we're in this chair and you feel okay.
A professor once told me,
yes.
Do you know why Africa is poor and the West is rich? He says in Europe, it is so cold that if you're outside, the cold drives you inside to go and think. But if you're in Africa, it's so hot inside that the heat drives you outside to go and play. So while the Europeans were thinking, we were playing. Why were we playing? Because in Uganda, I can just take a piece of maize, close your eye, throw it away, come back in 3 months' time, you will harvest maize. That will not happen in Europe. You need to walk the extra mile to ensure that
it can.
Yeah, so it's the free stuff we have and the abundance that we have that have made us become complacent. If it was hard to live, we'll become innovative.
Whatsoever.
Yeah.
It is a serious talk, and I'm trying to grasp it. I find facts in it, but again, back to our community, you outside there, to change is what now remains my question when you are talking about that.
Yeah.
And it's the reality, because it is very possible here to get a mineral water bottle, you put in the soil, you put in maybe an onion, and after 3 months you are able to eat the onion. Yeah. That's how our country, Uganda, we have all the potential, economic potential and advantage. And the reason why I was grasping your talk, Ugandans outside there, it is true. We are passing, for instance, through an economic hardship season, of where most of us, if not all of us, most of us, we are facing serious, dig deep into the pocket, hands into the pocket because of the skyrocketing high of commodities, high skyrocketing of commodities, prices for commodities. Mm. The basic commodities, you go to the supermarket, you have 100,000, you just have a small, kavera. And the fuel price, of course, which is believed to be attributed to many factors, also remains a challenge. Then the unemployment we are talking about, back to our youth, have the Europeans and others have just, reverted to either only criticizing the government or not working hard. Yeah. But there are those who are trying to work hard, maybe things are not working out, but still you're saying, no, if things are hard, you cannot allow oppression to remain. Yeah. And where you are tickling my mind, especially in matters of transparency and accountability, if for instance, there are circumstances where there is someone who is stealing your resources, which you would have been used either to go and access to. Yeah. On the other hand, it's not good to remain saying, Esente bazibye, that's in Uganda, meaning they have stolen our money. Ababi, babongede million bweziti, they have added them with this amount of money. And it becomes a talk for all television. Yeah. But it becomes rare to find maybe around out of 30 televisions, how many are saying now, those who have stolen us, what should we do? Yeah. Because I'm believing with my guest here, dear viewers, that indeed Ugandans were complacent. Maybe the situation is not too hard. When it becomes too hard, we may maybe think and see, for instance, how to go and drive out those thieves who are stealing government resources. It is very possible.
Of course.
It is very possible. Where we find that when we are counting as a country, now we have good research and statistics.
Yeah.
And it is on record between 2003 to now where we are, the amount of money we've lost is above 75 trillion shillings, which is just stolen. And people, even reports available. Yeah. They say this one stole this, this one stole this. And to our dismay, my dismay, as an advocate of good governance, and my professor here also, who believes for better governance, you find that these people are living and are in good offices. Okay. So citizens, you are being awakened. Please don't always just spectate when things are not okay. And above all, they call for hard work. If things are not yet too bad for you, you'll be able to go and sleep at home. But when things are not easy, especially for, as I speak, those who we are talking about job creation, you will think that takes us to the area of innovation, which is very much important. Now, back to our discussion, as we continue with our discussion, we are looking at the East African community. Yeah. East African community is aiming at economic integration. The heads of state, in our balanced discussion, they have tried to have as many countries on board as possible. Now there are 7 countries, equally like how you have ECOWAS. In West ECOWAS. Yeah. And the ECOWAS, you maybe highlight to us what they have done best. Because to me, as I moderate, I believe when the countries come together, what you would have done singularly as a country and what you do when you come into an integration, there must be priorities of what you want to achieve. Yeah. Because what I do at home alone and what we are doing here together is specific on a program. Yeah. And it seems that we have missed a point, especially to tackle problem by problem. For instance, now, for the last over 20 years of the existence of East African community, we've had these countries, 6 countries. Southern Sudan joined later. At first there were 5. Yeah. We had Rwanda, we have Burundi, we have Burundi now, we have Tanzania, Southern Sudan, of course Kenya, then Uganda is on, then now Democratic Republic of Congo. But tackling our challenges in this circumstance of the available resources, issues of, because this is in itself a challenge, how East Africa can join all the effort together. Yeah. Maybe, as you're saying, whether we go for a loan at once and we go to the World Bank, they give us like 5 trillion. Maybe they can trust us. And we use it to develop our natural resources. Me, I'm doing an agenda. You may give me your policy direction. On unemployment, we deal with it. Yeah. And we know that by doing ABCD, we add innovation, we create, innovativity, and maybe skilling, talenting, and we know that as East Africa, we must solve this. Yeah. Then in the event of this, there is insecurity. In a part of our topic today, we are looking at why should we have minerals at the same time while we are trying to tackle the problem of job creation and maybe low economic growth. All of a sudden, all this is bogged down by insecurity. People begin to kill one another. Yeah. May you give us, as far as you know, globally what has happened in other countries, why should this always be insecurity in the midst when some developing economies tend to take a step, insecurity comes in the middle?
Yeah, I think again, the issue of insecurity is directly linked to poverty. When people are poor, they will go into crime. So if a government is not doing what it's supposed to do, creating the enabling environment for the economy to thrive, you're going to get people who are not able to meet their basic needs. And when they don't meet their basic needs, they are poor, they will go into crime. And when you are poor, you can easily be, what's the word now? You can easily be indoctrinated to do anything.
Into rebel movements.
They give you arms and you're thinking, this life I'm living, it's not worth it. So what does it mean? I can go and die.
So you're saying in most cases, these fighting groups, like when you refer to Congo, when you refer to ADF, there are people even who don't know what they are fighting for, but they were just indoctrinated.
They've just been indoctrinated.
They are trying to make themselves busy.
They're trying to survive.
Survive.
Yeah. And when you're in that position, You can't listen to anything. Somebody can convince you to pick up arms for me and go and fight. Why do, in Africa, when you see elections coming, you see youths carrying guns and fighting for these politicians who are living in their well-guarded, their children are abroad studying, and this youth, why are they so vulnerable? It's poverty. When people are poor, there will be crime.
I hope the government, you're listening properly, make sure that your people or our people, they are not poor, we do all it takes. And it's an encouragement that we do much more to make sure that people are well. If the welfare of the people is catered for, so that means there will be no insecurity. That's one of the factors. You can continue. Yeah. It's a good talk.
If you look at Uganda, for example, the number of jobs that is created in Uganda annually, it's about maybe less than 10% of the number of graduates, whether diplomas or degree that we are creating. So nearly 90% of people will have no jobs because the number of jobs we are creating cannot cater for all this number of people. So you're going to, over the years, accumulate a large number of people who are unemployed. And when there's unemployment and they can't meet their basic needs.
So instead of, you are reminding me of my analysis, instead of capital accumulation, it is job unemployment accumulation.
That's also happening.
You find
and it's a time bomb.
You find a father like me. I'm not of that age. Like you are 20, because of the poverty we've talked about. By the age of 20, me I had not produced. At the age of 20, you find you have 3 kids. And the 3 kids, the kind of education that you facilitate your children to get is still low. At the age of 15, they drop out. And when because school dropout is a challenge, they are government stakeholders who are listening. And the school dropout, if the rate is higher, you find it's around 40%, 40 to 30%, the school dropout. Then the other unemployed father has the other children who are 15, 3 years to go to make 18, they are also unemployed. And they also, at the age of 21, oh my God. So the problem
is compounding.
Problem accumulation. And finally, I think that's where the stakeholders who are listening to us, while we're talking about minerals, there is also the way how to utilize land. I don't know whether you have anything to say about land, because it's part of it. But again, as you talk about land, I'm trying to grasp what you've shared with us. We have, apart from the poverty, there are fighting warlords on the African continent and in East Africa, who seems not to be ready. And because the warlords are the ones who misguide this. And I'm imagining, as we discuss, how can we manage the state of our politics, especially in an aspiration for integration, to solve the problem of the rising warlords who recruit our children into such a war rebel movements.
You made a mention before about the potential influence of the West in some of these wars. Russia, US, all these different countries have weapons that need to be sold. So if they see problems somewhere, they fuel those problems because it helps their economy, because they can sell their guns. So some of these warlords and some of these people, some of them are sponsored because they are fighting for their own interest. Some of them are also people that have been disenfranchised from the system. So they are just fighting back. So I think governments, presidents, leaders, members of parliament all have a role to play to reconcile people. Personally, I used to ask my friends in South Sudan, you've been asking for independence for many years. Now you got it. What are you fighting for? Because there is disagreement.
There's at a certain point referring to Nigeria and back to Uganda and also in Congo. Reach a time when there is, we had reached a time to always refer to rebel movements which are fighting government to be terrorists. Like how Boko Haram is, it is put under the terrorist group because innocent people die innocently, and which becomes a crime against humanity. And like ADF also, where some of our people died, that also becomes a terrorist group. And then we also look at this M23 I don't know why it should take long. This should also as well be referred as a terrorist group, because it is fighting, number one, a elected government. Number two, their fight is involving any tribal issues. When you hear that it is a group which is of this category, the group of this category, the other day I was seeing, it was terrible. I think you saw that, being shared on social media, of how in Congo, after this pressure of some Congolese began to run after with pangas on whosoever was either referred as a Tutsi. From the Tutsi, you saw it. And all of this is quite really dangerous. That becomes a genocide. And yet we are talking about the East Africa. We are looking at, the solution to provide as we come toward the closure of our program, the recommendation to be given to Nigeria. Has the ECOWAS dealt with such kind of terrorist or military warlords and groups? Because the capacity, if countries or even a country comes together and say, let's deal with this terrorist group, is a snare in our neighborhood, that can come to the end. I saw an instance of where, was it in Cameroon, of where is president of Gambia, where one through the election attempted to rig, and it was known, and they said, no, it is very on record that this election you are not the winner. And they gathered immediately, they gave him an ultimatum, and they solved the problem. Are we looking at where we reach a time equally? What happened there? Are we excelling very well where you can manage terrorist groups and also deal with the dictators, so that we can have economic growth? Because we cannot have economic growth where we are having the existence of dictators and terrorist groups. The last point which we are discussing is dealing with insecurity as a result of these terrorist groups that come in the form of warlords and forming civil military, groupings. And also the dictators who are also suppressing their countrymen and women, that leads the country to be unstable. What is your analysis on that?
I think, like you mentioned, the Nigerian or the ECOWAS case, ECOWAS have the ECOMOG force, which try to put peace where there are problems in the region, the ECOWAS region. However, another thing to think about is that sometimes countries are independent, autonomous, sovereign nations. And as much as
they have a military force.
Yeah, they have a military
also
force.
Was recently they
were
formed
much more effective, especially during the Liberian War and the Cameroon War. ECOMOG was very effective. I don't know how effective they are now. So thinking about East Africa, I know there's plans to form like a coalition.
Yeah, they have done it. A military force which to control each country to have 1,000. Yeah, which is quite good.
which possibly will help. But again, we need to start looking in-house. Sometimes the case of Congo is usually a fight for control of natural resource. Who is in charge? Who? Because there's a lot of money
with the influence of the Westerners.
So it's a fight of who is controlling what region. And another thing we can't take away from Africa about our nature, we are very diverse. So there are a lot of cultural issues, and there's a lot of disagreement among tribes and cultures and ethnic groups. But for me, a very good example that I say is, let's other leaders look at whatever Paul Kagame did in Rwanda, where nobody talks about tribes now. We are Rwandans.
But now the problem is in the Eastern Congo.
The
Eastern Congo, it is becoming tricky, because it's as if what is happening, the tribal issue is very central. And also the control of resources, of course, the influence of that. I don't know whether you could recommend, whether again should we have another pacification where of the Democratic Republic of Congo, like it happened in Southern Sudan. In the process, they said, let's have be Southern, North, the other Khartoum government, Sudan, and then Southern Sudan. Should we reach a time and we have maybe a division of democratic?
By international law, every group of people have right to self-determination, but there are legal processes of doing that. So the way the South Sudanese have done it, they went through the legal process of. So if any group of people in any country think, in Nigeria there's agitation in the east.
Because the governance of Congo remains, as we are looking at the security of East Africa, the security in Congo, it has a lot on us, we who are Ugandans, because in Congo we share borders at around like all areas, north, west,
absolutely,
yes, and also south. And it looks to be this eastern remains the challenge. I'm not advocating for that, dear viewers, but at least we need to have a lasting solution. Having said that, now generally, what are the recommendations briefly that you could want to give? Most of them we had already talked about, but for emphasis, that remain is key in effective governance of the natural resource for economic development. Basically having, you know, our citizens having jobs and also being assured of economic growth.
Yeah, I think for me to summarize, I would say that Ugandan government, East African government, African government in general needs to rethink the natural resource governance and think about the fact that this natural resource is a blessing and we need to convert it to a blessing and not a cost to the people. A lot of the time, oil, minerals have become cost to the local community. They die because they have resources. It shouldn't be. Government should utilize those revenues generated from the natural exploitation of those resources effectively. Starting with number one, ensuring that government gets a fair deal of those contracts for the benefit of the people. By having the right physical mechanisms in place, making sure you have the right contracts, and making sure you have the right skills of personnel to ensure that those contracts and policies are implemented. And then government ensuring that those revenues are used to develop other sectors of the economy where jobs can be created. Also more importantly, ensuring that as part of this natural resource money that you get, educate the population. We need to realize that while natural resource can help us grow, we need to realize that we are living in a digital age. And we need to ensure we develop the digital capacity of the country. Artificial intelligence is the future. What is Uganda doing in terms of training people for artificial intelligence? When I started, I was saying that the state of California has a total market economy of $3 trillion, while Uganda is still at $33 billion. Now, what do they sell in California? They don't sell gold. They don't sell coffee. They don't produce cotton or cocoa. What do they sell? Technology. That $3 trillion economy is technology-based.
Technology-based.
Yeah. And we are still agro-based. So you can see the difference.
So we need a shift,
we need a shift. Not just depending purely on natural resources,
and on agriculture,
but using the money from that natural resources to develop technology. Where have we gone with artificial intelligence? The Chinese are investing billions of dollars to developing artificial intelligence. So in 10, 20 years' time, when they're generating trillions.
Artificial intelligence deals with, you are talking about general research?
Yeah, so general aspect of internet computing, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, different kinds of technology using data. The world is driven now by data.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And this Microsoft, we know the trillions of dollars. Apple, these are $1 trillion market capitalization.
That's right.
And yet our top 250 companies in Africa is less than $300 billion. Not even up to Apple. So it shows you where we are focusing our strength.
Yes.
So we need to focus strength, develop, educate people. Let's ensure we go into internet technology, artificial intelligence, and develop that, because that can earn us more money than even what we get from agro products. Yeah. So government needs to purposefully set aside revenue from the rent collected from natural resource exploitation and develop other sectors of the economy, educate the population. You can never go wrong with educating the population.
Okay, the population must be educated, and all that you've said is very pertinent. It's a good public lecture. It's not only a talk show. I believe even when you get a copy of this and you take to your students, they will enjoy it, because those who are under natural resource, those who are studying environmental management, science, even business, even those who are studying. You talk about journalism. This is very good information that will help them and those who are following us outside there. But in 3 words, before we move forward, there will be another area which I would like to talk about. What's your advice to our youth who are job seekers? What is your advice in this era?
Okay, one of the things...
And then from there, you will tell us what exactly Victoria University you are doing to translate this knowledge, the information shared with us, to make impact to our generation.
So my general advice to youth is for youth to think outside the box. And as Professor Muganga will say, think without the box. Now, let's not just be looking for jobs. We can become creators of jobs. Uganda is a virgin land with loads of opportunity. Much as we've talked about a lot of the problems that Uganda has got, I call them institutional gaps. For every institutional gap is an opportunity for the birth of an entrepreneur. Because when you fill that institutional gap, you create a solution, you get yourself employed, and you create job for other people. So look for the problems that we have in Uganda and create solutions for them. Now, in Victoria University, one of the things we do is to provide experiential learning for people. We just don't want to train people who will be job seekers. We are we are training people who will want to become job creators, who will be entrepreneurs, who will be the employers of the future. People who look at the problem out there and based on all the theories we've studied, put them into practice to create sustainable solutions. So we are looking to create entrepreneurs. So those who are studying, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's health and safety.
You have the cost of oil and gas?
Yes.
How much per year?
So,
and who qualifies to apply for that course?
So at the moment we have a bachelor's degree in oil and gas management.
That's right.
It's about 1.2, 1.3 million per semester, 2 semesters a year.
1.3?
Yeah. And it's a 3-year course.
Okay.
And also we are launching also...
to want to qualify, so I
just need 2 principal passes in A-level.
In which subjects?
Yeah, if you don't have up to 2 principal passes, then you can enroll on the higher education
That is in which subjects?
So in sciences.
Sciences, either physics...
Also in science and management.
Physics, chemistry...
Biology. If you also did economics, that's fine. Accounting. So
geography.
It's a management course. Yeah,
geography. So if someone has a geography.
Yeah. Any 2 principal courses should get into the oil and gas management. For the engineering component, that needs you to have principal passes in chemistry and physics.
Yes.
And possibly maths.
Yes. Yeah, you are still interesting us in coming to Victoria University. Is there a fair deal for us?
Of course, at the moment...
For the viewers, finished? I'm an advocate for the viewers.
At the moment, we have one of the most subsidized quality education in Uganda. Our fees are highly subsidized, and I will advise getting while you can now. We have a lot of programs in all fields of business, humanities, health sciences, and science and technology as well. We have an oil and gas program, BSc Oil and Gas Management, and we are just starting a master's program in petroleum and environmental engineering. So we'll advise, take advantage while the fields are still relatively low, highly subsidized at the moment, to come into Victoria University. And what we pride ourselves is that we provide you experiential learning, high quality education, something that you might not find anywhere else in Uganda at the moment. And at the moment, it's still very affordable. So it's a very great opportunity for anyone to join the programs.
Thank you so much.
Our next recruitment and start date is in September, and recruitment is ongoing at the moment.
So as we conclude, the policymakers of Uganda, and there is a connect other than the disconnect, which you want to maybe as your last word of inspiration. The connect in this matter we are having the citizens, we have the citizens, we have the policymakers, and we have other factors, and some of them which are the natural resource which you're talking about. You remember there is also climate change.
Yeah.
which I think it's a responsibility for every human being.
Yeah.
So that connecting all this, I think there is some policy advice that you also would like to give us. The connect of the citizens and of the key players, the policy makers, then the external influencers, and then finally the natural environment, the environmental factor.
Yeah.
How can we connect the four to give us the best result? Job creation and economic growth.
Okay.
I'm conceptualizing with you.
Yeah, that's fine. One of the things we've not talked about during this conversation, it's about the implication of natural resource exploitation on the environment. And we probably know that you can't exploit natural resources without damaging the environment. And when I say environment, it includes the water, the land, the people, all the stakeholders involved in the process. But then policymakers have a role to play to ensure that in developing policies for natural resource exploitation, they must ensure that they put the right policies in place and the right regulations in place to protect the environment and also ensure that people get the maximum benefit from the exploitation of natural resources. What we are looking for is sustainable natural resource exploitation at the end of the day. So regulators, government have a role to play. And government must realize, and regulators must realize that this natural resource is not just for government, it is for the people. And they should make policies to ensure that the benefits of this exploitation trickles down to everyone, to the entire population. And also, more importantly, they must ensure that they expand on other aspects of the economy so that you don't fall into what we call paradox of